The observation station hung above Earth like a metal eye, watching everything and understanding nothing. Diplomat Zun stood before the wide viewing portal, his 6 fingers curled against his chest. His skin held the pale blue color of the Vosral, marked with the dark lines that showed his position as leader of the collective assembly. Behind him, the council members of the Vosral collective waited for his words. They had gathered to discuss what to do about the planet called Earth and the creatures that lived there. Zun looked down at the planet below. From this distance, it was beautiful. Blue water covered most of the surface. Green land stretched between the water. Clouds moved across the face of the world like living things. But Xian did not see beauty. He saw danger. For 7 generations, the Vosral had watched humanity. They had studied human behavior, human weapons, human ways of thinking. The data filled entire rooms in the station. The conclusion was always the same. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were aggressive. Humans destroyed their own world and the creatures on it. Humans killed each other without reason or mercy. Zan turned to face the council. His voice was cold and clear when he spoke. The humans cannot be trusted. They are predators without the intelligence to manage their own power. In another generation, they will leave their planet. They will spread through the galaxy like a disease. We must act now. Council member Tyrion, older and more careful than Zun, raised her voice. We have no direct evidence of attack. These humans have not left their world in numbers. Exactly, Zun said. They have not yet developed the ability. But they will. And when they do, they will be a threat to every civilization we have built peace with. He touched a control, and images appeared on the screen before them. Human cities burning. Human armies marching. Human weapons destroying the landscape. It was all true. It had all happened. But Xian selected only the violence and showed nothing else. They are killers by nature, Zhuan continued. They kill their own kind. They kill the creatures that share their world. This is not civilization. This is madness. Another council member, Piarn, spoke with the careful voice of a scientist. The humans also build. They create. They explore. They develop science and art. They are complex beings. Complexity that leads to destruction is not virtue, Zhuan answered. We have a responsibility to the peace of the galaxy. We have spent 4,000 years building the collective. We have brought order to chaos. We have made every species safe by bringing them under the protection of our guidance. Zhan touched the control again. New images appeared. They showed other planets, other species. On each world, creatures lived in perfect order. They did not fight each other. They did not destroy their environment. They were safe because they had surrendered their wild nature to the wisdom of the Vosral. This is what we offer, Xian said. Order, safety, peace. The humans could have this too, but only if they accept our guidance. Only if they agree to be managed. Taran looked troubled. You speak of management as if humans were dangerous animals. They are, Zin said without hesitation. But we have methods. We have brought order to the apex predators of Vosral Prime. We have taken creatures that were wild and dangerous and transformed them into docile guardians. We can do the same with humans. He showed more images. The beings on Vosral Prime were large and powerful. Some had teeth that could tear through steel. Some had speed that made normal eyes struggle to follow them. But in all the images, they moved slowly. They obeyed. They showed no will of their own. They existed only to serve. These beings were once dangerous, Jian explained. Through selective breeding and genetic manipulation over many generations, we removed their aggressive nature. We removed their desire for independence. Now they are safe. Now they are useful. Now they are at peace. The council members watched the docile creatures move through Vosral cities. None of them fought. None of them disobeyed. They were like machines made of flesh. This is what we can offer humanity, Zen continued. We can take these wild, dangerous creatures and shape them into something that serves rather than destroys. Piaran made a gesture of concern. The humans have developed technology quickly. Their capacity for learning is remarkable. If we try to control them genetically, they may resist. They may develop defenses. Then we act quickly, Jian said. We contact them. We offer them the truth. We tell them that we represent a civilization far beyond their own. We tell them that joining the collective means safety and order. Most will accept. Those who refuse will be isolated, controlled, managed. Terran stood. I do not agree with this course. We have no cause for war. We have no reason to fear these humans. Fear is not the issue, Zuan said coldly. Prevention is. In 50 years, Earth's humans will have weapons we cannot defend against. In 100 years, they will spread through the galaxy. In 500 years, they will destroy everything we have built. Or we act now. We offer them a choice. Accept the collective and live in peace under our guidance, or be removed from the equation. The council members looked at each other. There were no more objections spoken aloud. They would discuss this among themselves, but Zen already knew the outcome. The council would vote to contact Earth. They would offer the humans the treaty. And when the humans eventually refused, as Zan was certain they would, the collective would be justified in taking whatever measures were necessary. Zan turned back to the viewing portal and looked down at Earth once more. He did not notice something that the station's computers had recorded but never brought to his attention. The computers noted that humans formed bonds with Earth's most dangerous creatures. Humans lived with wolves and bears and big cats and snakes that could kill with poison. Humans did not cage these creatures and drain their will like the Vashral did. Humans lived beside them. Humans chose to share space with danger and did not collapse into chaos. But this information did not reach Zahn. It was filed as irrelevant data. A curiosity, nothing important. Far below. In a city on the daylight side of Earth, Captain Jack Morrison received a transmission on his military communication device. The message was in perfect English, though the voice was not human. This is Diplomat Zun of the Vashral Collective. We have been watching your world. We wish to speak. The future of your species depends on the choice you make in the coming days. Jack read the message 3 times. He looked at the other officers around him. They had the same confused, stunned expressions he felt growing on his own face. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and something wanted to talk to them. The station called Meridian floated in neutral space between 2 worlds. It was built by a species that no longer existed, abandoned long ago, but still functional. Now it served as the meeting place where 2 civilizations would first truly encounter each other. Captain Jack Morrison walked through the corridors with Dr. Emma Hart at his side. Emma was one of Earth's best biologists, a woman who had spent her life studying how living things behaved in nature and in captivity. Kevin Lynch followed behind them, a cultural expert who had studied how different human groups thought and valued different things. They arrived at the meeting chamber. The Vosral delegation was already there. Diplomat Zahn stood at the head of his group. His pale blue skin seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. His 6 fingers rested on a control panel. Around him stood other Vosral, all wearing formal markings on their skin that showed their rank and purpose. Jack extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Zun looked at it without understanding for a moment, then gestured for his translator to interpret the meaning. When he understood, Zen did not return the gesture. The Vashral did not touch each other unnecessarily. They saw touch as a risk of contamination and loss of control. They sat across from each other at a long table. There was silence for a moment. Zisnin spoke first, his words coming through a translation device that converted his language into human speech. I am Diplomat Zahn of the Voshral Collective. I bring an offer that your species may never receive again. You have two choices before you. Accept or be removed from the equation. Jack felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice steady. That sounds like a threat, not an offer. It is neither, Zahn said. It is reality. Your species is dangerous. You kill without purpose. You destroy without reason. The collective cannot allow such behavior to continue unchecked in the galaxy. Therefore, we offer you a chance. Join us, accept our guidance, and in exchange, we will give you peace. Emma leaned forward slightly. What kind of guidance? Zahn touched his control panel. A video began to play on screens around the room. It showed Vosrel Prime, the home world of the collective. The creatures there moved with perfect order. They never fought. They never questioned. They simply obeyed and served. Through careful selective breeding and genetic modification, we have removed the dangerous aspects of nature from the beings under our care, Zien explained. We can offer humanity the same gift. We can make you safe. We can remove the aggressive impulses that drive you to kill and destroy. You will be at peace. Emma's eyes narrowed as she watched the creatures on the screen. They looked like robots wearing flesh. They had no spark of independent thought. They had no will of their own. Remove aggression? Emma asked carefully. You mean you remove what makes them themselves? We remove what makes them dangerous, Zien corrected. In return, they are safe. They never suffer from anger or fear or the desire to harm. Is this not preferable to your current existence? Kevin spoke next. You're describing the removal of free will. You're describing the elimination of individual choice. Choice, Zan said, and there was something almost like pity in his voice, is what makes species destroy themselves. We have moved beyond choice. We have moved beyond individual will. We have all chosen to accept the wisdom of the collective, and therefore, there is no need for individual choice anymore. Jack felt something cold move down his spine. He had been preparing for this meeting for weeks, reading everything they had about Varshral culture, but actually hearing it spoke aloud was different. What happens if we refuse? Jack asked. Then, we will be forced to take measures to ensure your species does not become a threat, Zien said flatly. We have protocols for species that will not accept guidance. It is not pleasant, but it is necessary. Emma stood up. She walked to the screen and looked at the creatures shown there more carefully. She saw something in their eyes, or rather she saw the absence of something. These creatures, Emma said, pointing at the screen, they're not safe. They're dead inside. Look at their eyes. There's nothing there. You haven't removed their aggression. You've removed their minds. Zillan tilted his head slightly. The brain function remains. They can perform tasks. They can learn simple commands. What more is needed? Consciousness, Emma said. Self-awareness. The ability to choose what matters to you. You've turned living beings into puppets. And your way, Zan said coldly, is to let those beings tear each other apart. We have chosen differently. Jack stood now too. Why are you really here, Diplomat Zan? Not the official story. What do you actually fear about humanity? Zan was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, Jack could hear something that might have been frustration beneath the words. Your species is chaotic. You form bonds with dangerous creatures. You live beside apex predators and do not eliminate them. You keep them alive, feed them, protect them. This is madness. This proves you cannot be trusted to govern yourselves. Emma's expression changed. You mean the wolves? The bears? Dangerous animals that should have been exterminated, June said. Yet humans protect them. Humans live with them. Humans form emotional attachments to creatures that could kill them. This illogical behavior is exactly why you cannot be trusted. Kevin made the connection before Jack did. He leaned forward and spoke quietly but with absolute certainty. You're afraid of us because we're not afraid of strength. You fear being close to something wild and dangerous. That's the real issue. You don't understand how humans can stand next to something deadly and not need to control it. That terrifies you. Zahn stood abruptly. I fear nothing. I am protecting the stability of the Galactic Collective. You will have 10 of your days to decide. Join the collective and accept our guidance, or we will see you removed from this equation. The choice is yours. The Vosrel delegation left the chamber, leaving the three humans alone. Jack, Emma, and Kevin sat in silence for a long time. He wants to break us, Emma finally said. He wants to remove everything that makes us human. He wants to turn us into those empty creatures on his world. And if we refuse, he'll go to war, Kevin added. Not yet, Jack said. He was thinking carefully now, seeing the outline of something. He said 10 days. That means they need time. Either they need time to prepare, or they need time to hope that we'll accept without fighting. They want us to surrender voluntarily. Jack stood and walked to the viewing port. Beyond it, space was dark and infinite. Somewhere out there, a fleet was gathering. We need to go home, Jack said. We need to tell Earth what they're really asking us to accept. And then we need to figure out what kind of people we are. Not what Zen thinks we are. What we actually are. Emma joined him at the window. She was thinking about wolves and bears, about how humans had learned to live with wild things, not by controlling them, but by understanding them. He doesn't see it, Emma whispered. He doesn't understand that our strength comes from being willing to stand with danger. Our strength is that we choose not to destroy everything we fear. Kevin stood as well. Then we show him. Somehow, we show him what he's blind to. The three of them left the chamber together, knowing that everything had changed in the past hour, and that in 10 days, humanity would be forced to choose who they were going to be. The research vessels moved slowly through independent space, far from any nation's direct control. The three ships were small, designed for science rather than combat. Their crews were biologists, chemists, and data specialists. They were not soldiers. They had no reason to expect violence. Captain Lisa Carter stood on the observation deck of the lead vessel, the Meridian Stream. She watched the data feeds, showing whale migration patterns below them. The whales were moving north for the season, following routes they had used for millions of years. It was beautiful data, the kind of thing that reminded Lisa why she loved science. The universe had patterns. Understanding those patterns was the work of her life. A young technician named Marcus approached her. His expression was wrong. Something was making him nervous. Captain, Marcus said quietly, we're picking up energy signatures. Multiple ships, military configuration, approaching from the Spinward sector. Lisa felt something in her chest tighten. What military? Unknown configuration. Not any species we have records for. Lisa moved quickly to the main console. She could see the contacts on the screen now. They were closing fast. 5 ships, all large, all moving with the coordination of military vessels. Signal the other vessels, Lisa ordered. Emergency protocol. And get me a communication channel. The communication opened before they could broadcast. A voice came through in accented but clear human language. This is Vosrel Collector Fleet 17. You are operating in violation of collective space. Your vessel and crew are now under collective authority. Surrender immediately, and you will not be harmed. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Lisa looked at her crew. They were scientists. They had no weapons beyond the small defensive systems all research vessels carried. Against 5 Voshral military ships, they had no chance. But Lisa had not become a captain by accepting impossible odds. All vessels, initiate emergency beacon, she commanded. Broadcast to all human frequencies. Include our location and status. Captain, that's a general distress signal. It could be hours before help arrives, her navigator said. Then we have to stay alive for hours, Lisa said. She turned to face the Voshral communication. This is Captain Lisa Carter of the human research vessel Meridian Stream. We are in independent space. We have broken no laws. We will not surrender. The response was immediate and cold. You have 30 seconds to comply. 30, 29, 28. Lisa did not hesitate. All hands, evasive pattern, Alpha. Navigation, plot a course for the asteroid field at bearing 240. Engineering, give me everything you have. The small research vessel moved with unexpected grace. It was not built for combat, but it was built for moving through difficult space. Lisa knew the asteroid field ahead of them better than any pilot alive. She had mapped it during her research trips. The Voshral ships fired. Their weapons were powerful, designed to destroy enemies. But the Meridian Stream was small and nimble. Lisa took the ship into the asteroid field at a speed that made her crew hold their breath. She flew like she was dancing with the rocks, moving between them with a precision that seemed impossible. Behind them, the Voshral ships followed. They were more powerful, but they were not designed for this kind of flying. They were designed for open combat between large vessels. Kevin Lynch, monitoring communications from the Meridian station, heard the distress beacon. His hands moved across the console, sending emergency signals through every channel. Within hours, human ships began to respond. They came from everywhere. Military vessels answered the call. Yes, but so did civilian ships. Traders changed course. Explorers altered their routes. Scientists left their work. Humans came because one of their own was in trouble. Lisa kept the Meridian Stream moving for 6 hours. Her crew exhausted. The ship taking damage from the asteroid impacts and the Voshral weapons fire. But they stayed ahead. Just barely, they stayed ahead. Then the human response fleet appeared. 70 ships, ranging from small fighter craft to large cargo vessels that had been converted into temporary combat platforms. They came from a dozen different Earth-controlled stations and colonies. They came because a human was calling for help. The Voshral commander, Collector Thren, watched the human response on his screens. He had expected nothing. He had expected the human captain to surrender or die. He had certainly not expected this. 70 human ships against his 5. It should have been simple. The Voshral had superior weapons. The Voshral had superior shields. The Voshral had superior technology. But the human ships moved in patterns the Voshral did not understand. They did not attack in ordered formations. They did not follow the rules of warfare that the Voshral had observed in 1,000 conflicts with other species. The human pilots flew like they were wild things, like predators hunting. Human ships sacrificed themselves to protect other human ships. They took damage to keep the Voshral focused on them, allowing others to maneuver. A civilian cargo vessel moved directly toward a Voshral warship, forcing it to change course to avoid impact. This was not warfare as Thren understood it. This was chaos. This was sacrificial. This was born from something Thren had no name for. The Voshral commander gave the order to retreat. His ships were damaged. His crew was confused. More human vessels were arriving with every moment. There was no victory here. There was only the choice between retreat and destruction. As the Vosrel ships jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared, Lisa Carter sat in her captain's chair and watched them go. Her ship was damaged. Her crew was exhausted. Her research was ruined. But they were alive, and every human ship that arrived had come because of that one distress beacon. Not because of orders. Not because they were military personnel. Simply because a human asked for help, and other humans answered. Jack Morrison received the report on his secure communication device. A Vosrel attack. Human resistance. A massive response. The first real conflict. He read the details and understood something that diplomat Zahn had failed to understand. Humans were not creatures that could be broken by fear. Humans were not creatures that could be controlled by demonstrating superior power. When humans saw one of their own in danger, they did not calculate the odds. They simply came. Jack looked at Emma Hart, who was reading the same report. They just showed Zahn that we're willing to fight, Emma said quietly. No, Jack replied. They just showed Zahn that we're willing to sacrifice for each other. That's worse from his perspective. That's the thing he really fears. Not our weapons. Not our strength. The fact that we choose to stand together, even when it might cost us everything. 3 days remained before humanity had to give Xian its answer, and something fundamental had shifted. Humanity was no longer afraid. Humanity was no longer uncertain. Humanity had looked at the Vosrel demand and chosen, instead to save one of their own. The Vosrel thought they understood humans. They had been studying them for 7 generations. They understood nothing. Jack Morrison sat in the Global Command Center, deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, screens showed everything. Military positions. Civilian populations. The movement of the Vosrel fleet as it gathered at the border of human space. The data was clear. The Vosrel were preparing for invasion. Zahn had made his choice. He had decided that humanity would not accept the offer peacefully. He had decided that Earth must be conquered or destroyed. General Patricia Williams stood beside Jack, her face showing the weight of what she was seeing. We cannot win a direct war, Patricia said. It was not a question. It was a fact. They have more ships, better weapons, better shields. If they attack us head-on, we lose. Jack looked at the data one more time. But he was not looking at the military information. He was looking at something else. He was looking at Earth. He saw the forests where wolves hunted. He saw the mountains where bears lived. He saw the islands where big cats roamed wild. He saw the wetlands where snakes hunted in the grass. He saw all the creatures that the Vosrel believed were mistakes, remnants of Earth's past that should be eliminated. And Jack had an idea. It was dangerous. It was almost certainly crazy. But it was the only idea that felt true. General, I need you to contact every wildlife protection organization on Earth, every conservation group, every indigenous nation that protects wild lands. I need you to give them a message from me. Patricia's expression shifted. What message? Tell them that humanity needs them. Tell them that Earth's most dangerous creatures are not our enemies. Tell them that we need to create partnerships with them. Real partnerships. Not captivity. Not training them to obey. Alliance. Patricia stared at him. Captain Morrison, we're facing invasion and you want to befriend bears? I want to remind humanity what we are, Jack said. The Vosrel think we're the problem. They think our weakness is that we refuse to control and dominate. But they're wrong. Our strength is that we choose to live alongside danger without needing to crush it. Jack stood and walked to the global map. He pointed to different areas. Start with the wolves. Bring them into human settlements. Not caged. Not controlled. Let them hunt with us. Teach our soldiers to move like predators move, to think like predators think, to understand hunting and killing not as acts of cruelty, but as acts of survival and cooperation. Emma Hart had been listening from across the room. She moved to stand beside Jack. "You want us to become wild," Emma said, understanding. "I want us to remember what we already are," Jack corrected. "The Varsral have made us think that being civilized means being dead inside, like those creatures on their world. But we can be both. We can be intelligent and wild. We can be strong and compassionate. We can stand with dangerous creatures and not lose ourselves." It took 2 days to organize. But when it started, it spread like fire through human civilization. Wolves were brought from their protected forests into human communities. Not as pets, as partners. Soldiers trained alongside them, learning to move and hunt the way wolves hunt. Children, who had been taught to fear wolves, learned to live beside them. Bears were brought to defend borders and territories. Indigenous people, who had ancient knowledge about living with bears, trained young humans in the ways of mutual respect and understanding. Marine biologist teams brought knowledge of ocean predators to human navies. The great sharks that humans had hunted nearly to extinction were now studied and understood and allied with. Emma Hart led a program that taught humans to understand the predatory mind. She taught soldiers and civilians alike to think like the creatures they were partnering with, to embrace instinct alongside intelligence, to move with grace and precision, to understand that killing could be part of survival without being part of cruelty. Meanwhile, Kevin Lynch was working on something else. Something more dangerous. With help from intelligence operatives and underground networks within Varsral space. Kevin recorded a message. He spoke directly to the Varsral people, not their leadership. He showed them images from Earth. In the recordings, humans and wolves hunted together. Humans and bears defended territory together. Humans and great cats moved as one force through jungles and savannas. There was no chains. There was no domestication. There was only partnership and understanding. Kevin's voice was clear in the recordings. The Varsral leadership tells you that humans are dangerous. They tell you that we must be controlled and broken. They tell you that strength comes from removing the will of others. They show you creatures that were once powerful, now empty shells with nothing left inside. The recording showed the Varsral domesticated creatures, empty-eyed and lifeless. But look at this, Kevin continued, and the image changed. Humans and predators moved together through a forest. There was intelligence in every movement. There was choice in every action. There was will and strength and life. "This is not weakness," Kevin said. "This is not chaos. This is partnership. This is what beings can become when they choose each other as equals, rather than when one dominates the other." The recordings were broadcast through every channel they could reach. Some Varsral leadership tried to stop them, but they could not stop all of them. The message reached the Varsral citizens. And the Varsral citizens began to question. With only 1 day remaining before the Varsral ultimatum deadline. Jack received a communication from Earth's political leaders and military commanders. The decision had been made. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would not accept the removal of its wild nature. Humanity would stand and fight, but not in the way the Varsral expected. Jack stood in a meeting chamber with Emma and Kevin and General Patricia Williams. On the screens around them, they could see Earth transformed. Humans and wolves moved together through cities. Humans and bears defended territories. Humans trained with predators, learning to move as one unified force. It was not an army in the way the Varsral understood armies. It was something else. It was tribes. It was packs. It was families of humans and animals, united by choice and understanding. Jack turned to his team. "When they attack," he said quietly, They're going to expect soldiers and ships, organized and predictable. They're not going to expect something they've never seen before. They're not going to expect humans fighting like the wild creatures we chose as family. Emma placed her hand on his shoulder. You've turned the entire planet into a predator pack. I've reminded the planet what it already was, Jack said. We never stopped being creatures of Earth. We just forgot for a while. Now we remember. The day of the ultimatum arrived. The Vosrel fleet moved toward Earth. Neither side knew what was about to happen. The Vosrel expected conquest or submission. Humanity expected war. Neither side was ready for what they would actually find. The Vosrel fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's system. 50 capital warships moved with perfect coordination. Hundreds of fighter craft spread out in organized formations. They had come to conquer or destroy. They did not expect resistance to be possible. Diplomat Jun watched from his command vessel as the planet came into view. It was beautiful in the way that dangerous things can be beautiful. And it was about to burn. Begin the assault on the orbital defense grid, Zion ordered. The first volley of weapons tore through space toward Earth's orbit. The Vosrel had calculated the human defense capability. They had reviewed Earth's technology. They had determined the outcome before the battle even began. They were wrong about everything. The human orbital defense network did not fight the way the Vosrel expected. Instead of meeting the Vosrel weapons with concentrated return fire, the human ships moved. They moved with grace and unpredictability. They moved the way hunting creatures move. Pilot Captain Marcus Chun flew his fighter craft with an instinct that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his bones. He had trained for months with Wolfpacks, learning to think like a predator thinks. Learning to anticipate threats not through calculation, but through understanding. His fighter twisted through a Vosrel attack pattern, dodging weapons fire that should have destroyed him. His wingmate followed, moving in concert with him the way pack hunters move. Around them, dozens of human pilots danced between Vosrel fire, moving not with the rigid formation discipline of military training, but with the fluid cooperation of creatures hunting together. The Vosrel commander, coordinating the fighter assault, could not understand what he was seeing. The human ships were moving like they were alive, like they were thinking, like they were something more than machines piloted by predictable minds. One human pilot pushed his fighter directly toward a Vosrel carrier. The Vosrel defense systems locked onto the approaching human craft. They calculated the intercept. They fired. But the human pilot was not trying to reach the Vosrel ship. He was creating a distraction. While the Vosrel focused on him, 3 other human craft moved in from different angles, attacking from vectors that the Vosrel defense computer had not calculated for because the attack pattern made no logical sense. It was not a military maneuver. It was a hunting pattern. On Earth's surface, the second phase of the battle was beginning. General Patricia Williams stood in the command center and watched the data feeds showing the Vosrel ground assault beginning. Their ships descended through the atmosphere, dropping soldiers and weapons platforms in strategic locations. The soldiers expected organized human military resistance. They expected soldiers in uniforms, fighting in formation, following predictable tactics. What they found was something else. Humans and wolves moved together through cities and forests. The humans used weapons, but they moved like the wolves moved. They took different paths. They appeared where they were not expected. They worked as packs, coordinating through understanding rather than radio communication. Vosrel soldiers fought with discipline, but discipline does not prepare you for chaos. It does not prepare you for enemies who do not fight in ordered formations. It does not prepare you for the wild dot in the forests of what had once been called North America. Humans and bears defended their territories. The bears could not be controlled. The humans could not be predicted. Together, They created a defense that made no strategic sense and therefore could not be countered strategically. In the mountains, humans and big cats hunted the Voshral advance columns. The big cats moved with predatory grace. The humans moved with them, understanding their prey the way all predators understand prey. In the oceans, human swimmers in specialized suits worked alongside great white sharks and other predators the Voshral had no data for. They moved through water in ways the Voshral had never encountered, above and below, on the ground and in the air. Humanity fought not as a military force, but as a civilization of predators defending their home. Every person had trained with wild creatures. Every person understood hunting. Every person was willing to sacrifice for the pack. The Voshral advance came to a stop. Jean watched his fleet reporting casualties, his ground forces reporting resistance that exceeded all calculations, his soldiers reporting fear, not of human weapons, but of something they could not name. Something wild. Something that moved in ways nothing should move. And then came the broadcast from within. Voshral Space. Kevin Lynch's message reached every Voshral world. It showed the Voshral people images of Earth. It showed humans not conquered, not broken, not domesticated. It showed humans free and strong and wild, standing with dangerous creatures as equals. It showed something the Voshral leadership had never shown their people. Strength without the need to control. Power without the need to dominate. Partnership without the need to remove the will of others. The Voshral people began to question. In cities across Voshral space, citizens gathered. They saw the images. They saw something in the human faces that was missing from their own domesticated creatures. They saw what had been lost when the Voshral leadership chose the path of complete control. Political unrest began to spread. Not violent. Not yet, but real. The Voshral people were asking questions their leadership could not answer. Zun received a communication from Voshral High Assembly. They were withdrawing their support. The military operation against Earth was over, but Zine did not withdraw. He gave the order to attack harder. He gave the order to destroy. If he could conquer Earth, he could control the narrative. He could silence the questions being asked on the Voshral worlds. And then Jack Morrison transmitted directly to Zhen's command vessel. Jack was standing on the surface of Earth, and beside him stood a massive wolf. Not a pet, a partner. The wolf was as much a part of the transmission as Jack was. "Diplomat Zhan," Jack said, and his voice was calm and clear. "You came here because you fear what you do not understand. You fear wildness. You fear strength that is not controlled. You fear beings who choose partnership instead of domination. But look at what you see." Jack turned slowly, and the transmission showed what surrounded him. Humans and wolves. Humans and bears. Humans and predators of every kind, all moving together, all working as one. "This is not chaos," Jack continued. "This is not weakness. This is what strength actually looks like when it is free. This is what civilization becomes when it does not try to break everyone into compliance. You wanted to domesticate us. You wanted to make us empty and obedient. But we chose differently. We chose to stand with the wild things. We chose to keep ourselves alive and thinking and free. And that choice is what you cannot defeat." Jack moved forward, and the wolves moved with him. They were not being commanded. They were moving in unison because they chose to. You came here to conquer a broken species. Instead, you found something you have forgotten your people ever were. You found the capacity to choose. You found the strength to stand with danger without needing to destroy it. And that terrifies you because you realize your way is not the only way. It may not even be the best way. Zhan was silent. The Voshral ship still hung in orbit. The battle was still ongoing. But Zine had a moment of seeing something he had spent his entire life not seeing. He saw humans who chose to risk themselves for creatures they did not need to control. He saw strength that did not come from domination. He saw freedom that did not lead to chaos. Zune understood, finally, what he had feared all along. It was not human violence. It was human choice. It was the fact that humans could be wild and strong and still choose compassion. It was the fact that humans could stand with danger and not destroy it. The Vosral fleet received the withdrawal order. Zun had given the command to retreat. The battle was over. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Council itself convened. They watched the recordings from Earth. They saw what Zun had tried to hide. They saw what Kevin Lynch had shown them. They saw what Jack Morrison had revealed. The Vosral philosophy of control and domestication was questioned. Not rejected yet. Questioned. But that was enough. Humanity did not celebrate conquest. They celebrated choice. Jack stood with Emma and Kevin in a clearing where wolves hunted in the distance. The grass around them was wild. The creatures were free. The people were alive. What happens now? Emma asked. Now, Jack said, we show the galaxy what we learned. That strength comes from freedom. That the best civilizations are not built on control, but on partnership. That there is a way to be strong without needing to break anything else. Kevin looked out at the wild lands of Earth. All across the planet, humans and predators were building new settlements together. They were creating something the galaxy had never seen before. Not domestication, alliance, not control, partnership. They're going to ask us to teach them, Kevin said. Let them ask, Jack replied. We'll show them how. The story of Earth spread through the galaxy, not as a tale of military victory, but as something more important. A tale of a species that chose to be wild and free, and still chose to be good. The Vosral had come to dominate humanity. Instead, they learned what humanity actually was, and the galaxy would never be the same.